So that was the help function, and again I want to emphasize you don't have to figure out how to use an option on the fly during an exam. That's too much to ask. All you're really doing is just bringing up the man pages for a command, whatever the command is, and reading through the options and trying to find the best option. So is it -S, -L, -A, whatever the case may be. So please don't get too stressed out about that question. It is quite easy. We're going to go on to adding a file system. Now, I've already published 3 or 4 YouTube videos on this that goes through it in detail. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. This is only going to be a summary of adding a file system because you have detailed videos on how to do that. So the first thing we have to do is we need to shut down Linux. So let's go ahead and close everything up. So there is a shutdown command that you can do from the command line. So shutdown -halt space now, or you can do it from the graphical user interface. So while that's powering down, let's quickly go over what we have to do here. So we're going to add a 1 GB virtual hard drive, boot up and verify that SDB was created, and then create a partition. Okay, we're going to use all of SDB, and we're going to format it, create a mount point directory, and then go ahead and mount. So let's go ahead and go to the settings after it's powered down and add a 1 GB hard drive. So we go to storage, we go to the controller. Okay, you can see this is where Linux is installed. That's your SDA. Let's go ahead and create the SDB. So we click create a new one, accept the default, accept the default. Like I'm saying, if this is too fast, please go back to the previous videos on creating a file system where we go through it in detail and go through it more slowly. And this is going to be 1 GB, and we go ahead and click choose and create, and there it is. That's going to be your SDB. So let's go ahead and start up Linux. I'm going to momentarily pause the video while it's booting up. So Linux has now started up. The first thing I want to do is I want to verify that SDB. So let's bring up a tool for it. We go to Application, System Tools, Disk Utility. There's more than one way of doing it, but I'm going to show you the easiest way. This is where Linux was installed. Remember, you created a 10.5 GB hard drive to install it on. Here it's rounded off to 11 GB, and that's the hard drive, the virtual hard drive that you just added. So this is your SDA. You can see the device file right there, and here is your SDB. It is indeed created. You can see the location, and currently it is unpartitioned. So we are now going to partition SDB. Now the utility for partitioning is fdisk, and you need to be a super user. Okay, so let's go ahead and do fdisk /dev/SDB. Remember, all your device files are located inside dev, and anytime you need help, you press M to review all the options. We are now going to create a new partition, letter N, and we're going to make it primary, select P. And to make this easy, we're just going to choose partition number 1. Maybe on the exam it might be partition 2, 3, or 4. And now at this point we press enter 2 times to use the whole of the hard drive for creating one giant partition. Enter, enter. And when we do P to print the partition table, we see that we have a partition here, and the device file is SDB1. Remember, SDB is the hard drive. SDB with a number is the partition on that hard drive. We want W to save our changes. Okay, so we have now saved it, and we are ready to format. So to format, you're going to make a file system, MKFS. That is the command in Linux. And we are going to format it with type extended 3, extended 2, 3, or 4. Okay, and now you just have to specify what you're formatting. So inside dev, we have the SDB hard drive. That's the device file for the hard drive, but it is the partition that we're going to format. So if it was partition 2, you would format SDB2. In this case, we selected partition number 1. So there it is. It is now successfully formatted. When we return to the questions, okay, we've now formatted it. We're going to create a file or a directory, mount point directory called archives, and we're going to mount, oops, that's a typo, not SDB, SDB1. You don't mount the hard drive, you mount the partition. So let's go ahead, clear the screen, and we are going to mount. First specify the type of file system, extended 4, and we didn't create the mount point directory. Make dir/archive or archives. Let's see what the question specifies, archives with an S. Okay, and we are now going to mount. So mount, the file type, -t is extended 4. That's what you formatted it with. You're going to mount your SDB1. So dev/SDB1. Remember, SDB is the hard drive. SDB with a partition number. That's the partition on the hard drive. That's what we're mounting. And we are mounting it to that new directory that we just created, archives. We press enter, and the only thing left now is we just need to verify that everything was done correctly. So list your mount table, display your mount table with a mount command. You should see a new line right there at the bottom. You can see SDB1 has been mounted to archives. It has an extended 4 file system, and it's read and write. And if you want to be absolutely sure, go to that directory. Change directory /archives, and when I type ls, this is critical, lost and found. That means everything worked fine. If you don't see lost and found, either you did not format it correctly or you did not mount it. Something went wrong. Now, just to convince you, this new hard drive is a perfectly good hard drive. I can start creating files in there. Touch file 1, touch file 2, 3, ls, and we see those files there. Now, watch this part very carefully. I'm going to leave that directory. Change directory root. Currently, I'm inside archives. pwd. I'm inside archives. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to go back to the root, and I am going to unmount it. And the command to unmount is umount. So what are we unmounting? We are unmounting SDB1. We press enter. Let's return to archives. Change directory, archives. If we type ls, there's no lost and found. There are no files. Did it disappear? No, they're still on that hard drive, or that partition, but that partition is not currently accessible. So for prosperity, we're going to run through this step one more time. Go back to the root. Browse through your list of commands using the up arrow and find that mount command. Oops, there it is. Let's mount it again. Let's go into archives again. We type ls and we see that our files are still there and everything is perfectly good. So mounting, all that does is it makes a hard drive available. And when you unmount, you don't lose those files. Those files are still there, but they're not accessible. The equivalent in Windows, and when we get to recent operating systems, we're going to actually do this. The equivalent of in Windows, when we go to the computer, this PC, we see a C drive, D drive. If I plug in a USB drive, it might be an E or F. Okay, if I remove that drive letter, okay, that doesn't mean my USB drive disappeared or my DVD disappeared. It just means it's not currently accessible. But the only difference is in the Windows world, we use a drive letter, C, D, E, F, for partitions and for file systems. In Linux, we don't use drive letters, we use mount point directories. Other than that, it's completely the same.